My name is Selenia Havoc. I'm 30 years old. If you had paused the night right before my sister walked in, it would have looked like one of those happy moments in a movie. The kind of moment where everything seems perfect for the main character. The wedding had gone exactly as I had hoped. The lights were soft and warm, glowing like they were made of honey or soft candles. People were smiling, but not just in a polite way. They were glowing, the kind of happiness that makes your chest feel full and warm, the kind that makes you feel everything is right in the world. But before I continue, hit the subscribe button and tell me where are you watching this from, and what time of day is it? My husband, Selim, looked at me like I was the only person in the whole room. His eyes were calm and happy, and I felt like I could see how much he loved me just by the way he was looking at me. Our first dance was perfect. I usually have a busy, nervous brain, but that night it was calm. I felt every second, every twirl, and every step. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in the exact place I was supposed to be. I felt safe. I felt happy. I felt loved. And I believed nothing could ruin it. Then Seraphine arrived. My sister. She was late enough that everyone noticed. The music didn't stop, but it felt like it stumbled for a second. You could almost feel the air pause. She walked in like the room belonged to her, head high, hair perfect, a small smirk playing at the corner of her mouth. She walked as if she owned the floor, like she was walking on a runway, like a queen. But it wasn't just her walking, it was what she was wearing. Seraphine wore a white dress. Not off-white, not cream, not champagne, not blush. White. Pure, bright, shiny white. It was long, floor-length, and fit her perfectly. It glimmered under the warm lights as if it wanted everyone to look at her. I could see people's faces change the moment they realized what she had done. One of Selim's uncles even leaned over and whispered to me, "Is this some kind of joke?" It wasn't a joke. Seraphine never cared about anyone else's feelings when she wanted to make a point. She walked in as if the whole day was meant to be about her, not about me or Selim. Without even saying a word at first, she took half the air out of the room. People's eyes bounced between me and her, waiting to see how I would react. Guests shifted in their chairs, unsure what to do. Some tried to hide their surprise. Some tried to pretend it wasn't happening. But it was happening and everyone knew it. I did nothing. I chose to do nothing. I felt Selim squeeze my hand gently, like he was asking if I was okay. I looked into his eyes and I saw the question there, but also the answer. He glanced at Seraphine once and then turned back to me, smiling like she wasn't even there. That smile should have made me feel strong, but it made me want to cry. Not because of her, but because I realized that Selim deserved peace on his wedding day. He had quietly been the one holding me together for years, while I tried to hold everyone else together. For him, I had to be calm. I made a decision right then. I would not let Seraphine ruin this day for him. I swallowed my embarrassment, my anger, and even the urge to march over and demand answers. I shoved all those feelings down somewhere behind my ribs. I smiled. I laughed when I was supposed to laugh. I danced when the DJ called us onto the floor. I thanked the guests. I posed for photos. I cut the cake. I made speeches. I hugged people I barely knew. I gave them the Selenia that Selim deserved that night. I tried to match his calm, his grace, his happiness. But inside, everything felt like walking on broken glass. I could feel the way people's eyes flicked from Seraphine's dress back to me. I could hear whispers in the corners of the room. Some people pretended not to notice. Others lingered a little too long, saying things like, "You look beautiful," as if they were silently apologizing for my sister's behavior. Seraphine, for her part, acted completely normal. She sat at her table, drank, laughed, and acted like she hadn't just tried to steal my wedding day from me. We made it through dinner, through the speeches, and even the parent dances. People started taking off their shoes, letting loose, enjoying themselves. Guests who knew the history quietly checked on me. "Are you okay?" they whispered. "Do you want me to say something?" Each time I shook my head. I would not give Seraphine the satisfaction of making a scene. For a little while, it felt like maybe we had escaped her. The tension in my shoulders started to fade. The music got louder. People got happier, and even a little drunk. Selim laughed with his friends. Maybe, just maybe, we had outrun her. Then Seraphine stood up. She was at a table near the dance floor, holding a huge wine glass full of dark red wine. The DJ had just lowered the music, that in-between moment where people sometimes give last-minute toasts. I thought for half a second that maybe she would do the right thing. Maybe she would clink her glass quietly and say something small and kind. But she didn't. She turned toward Selim. "Here's to the family fraud in white," she said. The words cut through the room like a knife. There was a pause, a half-beat where nobody moved or spoke, because no one could believe she had said it. Then she threw the wine. Not at Selim. At me. I didn't have time to move. The cold wine hit the front of my dress and ran down like sticky, dark blood. It soaked the lace and dripped to the floor. I could feel it running down me, and I could feel everyone's eyes staring at me. Someone nearby laughed, a little confused, but then stopped when they realized it wasn't a joke. The room went silent. One of Selim's cousins dropped her glass, and it shattered on the floor. I didn't look down. I didn't need to. I felt the cold stickiness on my skin, and I felt the weight of everyone watching me. My mom reacted next. She rushed straight to Seraphine, grabbed her by the arm, and pulled her behind her like a child who had done something wrong. Mom hissed at her loud enough that at least 3 tables could hear. Seraphine never does anything halfway. If she's unhappy, everyone else has to feel it too. If she's miserable, she drags the whole room into her misery instead of sitting with it alone. Selim stepped toward me, his face full of concern and fury. "Cam," he said. I held up a small hand, a tiny, almost ridiculous gesture, and said calmly, "I'm fine. I'll change." I didn't look at Seraphine or Mom. I walked out of the reception hall and into the quiet of the bridal suite. The door closed behind me like a soft sigh. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at myself. White ruined by red. My perfect wedding night, ruined by something too familiar. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just took a deep breath, pulled off the dress, and put on my backup outfit. I had packed it just in case, though I had imagined spills of champagne, not wine thrown on me. When I went back to the reception, people looked away, then back at me. I smiled, danced, wrapped my arms around Selim, and whispered, "We're okay." He kissed my forehead. "We're more than okay," he said. "We're married." I held on to that moment, that truth. But inside, another part of me was wide awake. I knew this would be the last time Seraphine could humiliate me. After the last guest left, after the DJ packed up, after my parents disappeared with Seraphine in tow, Selim and I finally went home. He fell asleep fast, exhausted from all the events of the night. I lay awake next to him, watching his chest rise and fall, feeling calm for him, but not for myself. I quietly slipped out of bed and went downstairs. The house was silent. The only light came from the glow of my laptop screen. I opened it and logged into the shared bank account I had set up for emergencies. It was the account where my paycheck went to help Seraphine with her problems, tuition, rent, car repairs, fees, and other random charges that somehow became my responsibility. I stared at the balance. The number looked huge, like a mountain built from my own inability to say no. Then I froze the account. One click. Done. No warning. No explanation. The next morning, somewhere across town, Seraphine received an email. Final payment failed. Enrollment withdrawn. At 8:41 a.m., my phone started ringing. It was my mother. I knew exactly how the conversation would go if I picked up. How devastated Seraphine was. How surprised. How angry. How I had overreacted. So I let the phone ring. By the 5th ring, a text came through. "What did you do to your sister?" I looked at it and smiled. I answered with one word. Nothing. For 30 years, I had done everything for Seraphine. Freezing the account wasn't cruelty. It was the first time I let her feel the ground beneath her feet and stand on her own. By 9 a.m., I had 6 missed calls, 3 voicemails, and a text accusing me of ruining Seraphine's future. I didn't listen. I knew how it would sound. My mother's voice, high-pitched and crying, but never saying, "We messed up." I stood at the kitchen counter, sipping coffee, watching the sunlight creep across the room. Selim wandered into the kitchen, messy hair, pajama pants, t-shirt, eyes squinting against the light. He kissed my cheek, grabbed a mug, and glanced at my phone. "You're not going to answer?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. He studied my face for a moment, then nodded. He didn't ask for details. He didn't push. That's Selim. He trusts my instincts, even when my own family doesn't. For the first time in years, I had made a decision that was just for me, that was just for us. I didn't have to save anyone else. I didn't have to protect anyone else. I didn't have to make everyone happy. And it felt good. The phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Mom. It said, "What did you do to your sister?" I put my hand around my warm coffee mug and took a slow sip. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, thinking about what to write. Me. Nothing. And that was true. I really hadn't done anything yet. For 30 years I had done everything for my sister. I covered for her when she got into trouble. I fixed things when she broke them. I made life smoother and easier for her whenever I could. I tried to protect her from bad things, from people getting mad, from problems that were not really hers. I was always careful, always helping, always making things better. I thought that was my job as her sister. But today I did nothing. And for the first time, I realized how strange and freeing it felt. I wasn't sure if I felt proud or scared. Maybe it was a little bit of both. I just sat there, staring at my coffee and thinking about everything that had happened. By lunchtime, my dad's name finally appeared on my phone screen. I knew this call would be serious. He didn't call me, he sent a text first. That told me a lot. When my dad doesn't call, it means he is really worried. I typed quickly. Dad, Selenia call me. This is serious. I sat at the dining table. Yesterday's flowers were still in a vase. They were starting to curl at the edges, and some petals were bruised from being out too long. It was funny how something so pretty could also look so sad and tired. I dialed my dad's number. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, and then he picked up. Selenia, he said, without even saying hello. His voice was serious. Do you understand what you've done? Good morning to you too, I said. This is not the time for jokes, he snapped. His voice sounded angry and scared at the same time. Seraphine's school enrollment has been withdrawn. They dropped her. They won't let her back in without payment. She is going to lose the entire semester, maybe even the whole year. I know, I said softly. There was a long silence. I could almost hear him breathing, thinking, trying to understand. You are okay with that? He asked finally. Yes, I said. You don't mean that, he said sharply. I do, I said. He sucked in a deep breath. She has no way to fix this. The school doesn't care about family problems. They told your mother. It's a systems issue, not emotional. We just need payment. Interesting, I said. They and I have that in common. Selenia, he said, his voice suddenly sounding worried. This is too far. She was emotional. It was your wedding. People say things they don't mean when they are upset. She threw wine on my wedding dress, I said quietly, keeping my voice calm. She called me a fraud. In front of my husband. In front of our families. That's not something people just say without meaning it. That was real. He exhaled harshly. So this is about revenge, he said. No, I said. If I wanted revenge, I would have done it years ago. Another silence stretched between us. Long, thick. Like something heavy hanging in the air. Seraphine is your sister, he said finally. We raised you to look out for each other. You raised me to look out for her, I corrected him. He didn't answer. When we hung up, I felt calm. Not happy, not angry, not triumphant. Just clear. For the first time in my life, my parents were feeling what I had felt for so long. What it felt like when the safety net you always counted on steps away. That afternoon, I opened my laptop again. The shared account was frozen, but that wasn't the only place Seraphine depended on me. I logged into the health insurance website. 2 years ago, when Seraphine's temporary job didn't offer benefits, I had quietly added her to the plan Selim and I shared. I had thought it would just be until she got on her feet. But she never really got on her feet. I hovered my mouse over her name, just thinking about how long it had been. Not because I hesitated. Not because I felt bad. But because a part of me wanted to mark the moment. Then I clicked remove. The website warned me that removing a dependent would change coverage. I clicked confirm. Next, I opened the student loan website. Seraphine had missed her grant deadline. She had called me, crying, her voice shaking. I can't lose this, Cam, she said. I'm finally trying. I had signed as a responsible party. I had set up automatic payments for her minimums. I told myself I would help just until she got stabilized. I had always helped her. But now it was time to stop. I navigated to the settings and canceled the autopay. Another warning popped up. Failure to pay may result in default. I let it sit on the screen for a few seconds, like a little note under our entire relationship. Then I clicked confirm. No dramatics. No big announcements. I just quietly closed one window after another, letting the structure of her life finally stand on its own weight. The next day, Mom tried a new tactic. She sent me a picture of Seraphine's university acceptance letter. The same one she had framed and kept on the mantle last year, bragging to anyone who came over about her baby girl making something of herself. Mom, you were proud of her then, I thought, staring at the picture. How can you try to take that away from her now? I noticed something else in the photo too. The little corners of the frame, the way the paper was slightly yellowed with age. Memories of the time I had helped her move, helped her settle in for school. What Mom didn't understand was that I wasn't taking anything away. I had already given Seraphine more chances than she deserved. I locked my phone without replying. That night, I was brushing my teeth next to Selim. He glanced at his phone. His face scrunched up in confusion. Then he turned it toward me. It was a DM from Mom. Mom, I didn't want to involve you, but I'm worried about Selenia. She's being controlling, punishing her sister. Please watch for that behavior. It can get worse. Selim snorted toothpaste foam and almost choked laughing. Then he wiped his mouth and read the message out loud in a dramatic whisper. Punishing her sister? I laughed too. But the laughter died quickly because I realized something important. They weren't trying to get me to forgive Seraphine. They were trying to shame me back into being the person they always expected. The stable one, the fixer, the problem solver, the woman who quietly absorbs everyone else's storms and asks for scraps of gratitude. They wanted me back on script. I dried my hands and grabbed my phone. For the first time since the account freeze, I texted my mother. Me. If Seraphine apologizes directly to Selim, I'll consider talking. No response. Of course there wasn't. Seraphine never apologizes, especially not to other people. And now, not to the man who saw her throw wine on my wedding dress in the ugliest, most humiliating way possible. So the silence continued, but it felt different now. Before, my silence was endurance. Now it was a line. And I had no intention of stepping back over it. Silence has weight. By the second day after the wedding, it hung over my phone like thick humidity, heavy, something you could feel even when nobody was texting. Mom's calls slowed. My dad didn't reach out again. Seraphine was quiet, which for her wasn't calm. It was a strategy. They were regrouping, rewriting the story in their heads, trying to figure out how to get me back into my old role. The predictable one, the fixer, the woman who handled everyone else's storms and called it family. But I wasn't stepping back into that part anymore. And the moment they realized it, things began to break. I started with facts, not feelings. I called Seraphine's university, something I had done dozens of times before for her. The academic advisor recognized my name immediately. Selenia, is everything okay? She asked. Fine, I said, just confirming her enrollment status. A pause. Papers rustling. Keystrokes. She's been withdrawn. Payment deadline passed. Space was offered to another student. Housing is tied to active enrollment. She has 14 days to vacate. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I thanked her, hung up, and set my phone down. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt done. A few hours later, Seraphine finally broke her silence. A single text. A thumbs-up emoji. No explanation. No apology. Not even a real sentence. It was like she was just telling a coworker that the meeting room was booked. It would have been funny if it weren't so predictable. I didn't answer. The next morning, a voicemail came through. Her voice was breezy, too fast. Too chipper. Hey Cam. Looks like the account froze. Maybe the bank flagged something. The rent office at my housing is being weird about it. Can you just clear it up real quick? Clear it up. Like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't thrown red wine on my wedding dress 48 hours earlier. Still, I said nothing. 2 days later, Seraphine called again. Seraphine, I said. Yes. They're telling me I have to move out by Friday. Seriously. You're going to let that happen? Yes, I said simply. Yes, I said again. I wasn't changing my mind. My mom escalated next. Guilt was her favorite language. She sent me a photo that was supposed to tug at my heartstrings. Seraphine sitting on a friend's couch, curled up, surrounded by trash bags, holding her clothes and belongings. I noticed something else. One of the boxes in the corner was labeled in my handwriting. The same neat letters I used the day I had helped pack her things when she moved in before. I felt nothing. Not anger. Not triumph. Just hollow recognition. I had spent years building her safety nets. She had spent years assuming they were permanent. Meanwhile, Seraphine started her real campaign where it mattered most to her. Online. She posted a picture on Instagram. She was holding a glass of wine again, smirking at the camera like she wasn't unraveling. The caption said, "Some people are great at pretending. Guess I learned from the best." She tagged me. That was the moment I realized Seraphine wasn't just spiraling. She was trying to take me down publicly. A former coworker even sent me a DM. "Hey, saw your sister's post. Is everything okay?" And that was it. Not a big explosion. Not a meltdown. Just a quiet little question. Not an explosion. Not a meltdown. Just a quiet little question. And that was enough. That was the moment I realized Seraphine wanted to take me down publicly. I didn't text her. I didn't post anything. I didn't call anyone for advice. I reached out to the scholarship foundation Seraphine had received funding from, one she got only because I wrote her a glowing letter of recommendation. Funny words now. I sent a polite, professional, surgical email. I said I needed to withdraw my endorsement. I attached a screenshot of the university's withdrawal notice. I explained I could no longer support her participation because of major instability and misrepresentation. The foundation responded in hours, interested, concerned, asking for more context. I gave it. Factual. Emotionless. By the next afternoon, Seraphine's scholarship was revoked. No ceremony. No drama. Just a small administrative update somewhere in a system. Scholarship rescinded. She found out almost instantly. 4 calls in a row. Ignored. Then a 4th. I answered. Her voice burst through the line, frantic, furious, panicked. You ruined my future, she shouted. You're jealous. You've always been jealous of me, my potential, my opportunities. Seraphine, I said quietly. Stop. She didn't. You want me to fail, she continued. You want to feel superior. You're being vindictive. Everyone sees it. Why are you doing this to me? I let the silence settle for a full 5 seconds. Then I said simply, You did this. No, you threw wine on me at my wedding, I said. You mocked me for years. You took my help for granted. You treated my stability like it belonged to you. And I let it happen every time. Now I've stopped. She exhaled sharply. Okay. What do you want? Money? A public apology? I can post something. Clarify everything. Is that what this is? A negotiation? No, I said. There was nothing she could give me. You're not serious, she whispered. Selenia, I'm your sister. Yeah, I said softly. That used to mean something. And I hung up. By Friday, her dorm eviction was official. I didn't know where she had gone. I didn't ask. I didn't care enough to follow her on social media or check her posts. My mom sent lots of messages, full of sadness and worry, and each one seemed more desperate than the last. Aunts and cousins joined in too. They all sent texts and calls saying the same thing. Family is all we have. Meet us halfway. You are the strong one. We need you to fix everything. Seraphine always looked up to you. All of them wanted the same thing. They didn't want a real solution. They didn't want anyone to take responsibility for what happened. They wanted me to go back to being the same Selenia I used to be. The quiet Selenia. Selenia who hid her feelings. Selenia who fixed everyone else's problems without asking for help. Selenia who kept the family calm when everything fell apart. But something inside me had finally broken, and I wasn't going back to that life. I wasn't going back to being the person who took all the blame, who kept everyone else happy while I suffered quietly. Then my dad texted me. Do you want a relationship with your family or not? A few years ago, that question would have hurt me so much it felt like someone was stabbing my chest. It would have made me feel like I had to drop everything and obey. But now I could see it for what it really was. It wasn't a question about love or feelings. It was a threat disguised as a question. He was saying, Do you want us back? Then do what we want. Do what you've always done. I answered honestly. Not like this. He didn't reply. And by that time, I realized something important. This wasn't just a small change. It wasn't a passing feeling. I wasn't going back to being who they wanted me to be. And the person most afraid of that wasn't Seraphine. It was the whole family. Because when I stopped falling on the grenade for them, when I stopped taking all the blame, they realized something they had never admitted before. The problems weren't mine. They were theirs. By the first week after the wedding, the silence in my family wasn't peaceful anymore. It wasn't calm or safe. It was tactical, strategic, quiet in a way that meant they were no longer trying to solve a problem. They were just trying to get the problem person back in line. And that person was me. That was when I finally understood something I had been avoiding for years. My family didn't want reconciliation. They didn't want apologies or solutions. They wanted to reset. They wanted the old version of me. The version of me that they depended on. Selenia who quietly paid for everything. Selenia who absorbed every mess Seraphine made. Selenia who fixed the family's financial problems before anyone else even noticed. Seraphine might have thrown the wine, but the whole family had built the table she threw it from. The cousins were the first to arrive. Between Wednesday night and Friday morning, I got 11 messages from people I hadn't heard from in literal years. People who hadn't even commented on my engagement photos suddenly acted like we had shared a bedroom growing up. Every message sounded sugary sweet, but I knew the tone. I knew the hidden meaning. Families often use fake sweetness to manipulate without sounding mean. Hey Selenia, long time no talk. Heard about the misunderstanding at the wedding. You know how Seraphine gets. Stress affects people differently. You are the strong one. We are counting on you to pull this back together. That last line flipped a switch in me. You're the strong one. That was my role. That was the assignment. And they were furious that I had suddenly stopped playing it. Mom escalated next. She sent a photo of Seraphine's old college acceptance letter, as if that meant I was automatically responsible for paying for her life again. Then she sent a long paragraph about family and how sisters should forgive each other. Conveniently, there was no mention of spilled wine or public humiliation. I didn't reply. Then she tried a new tactic. She messaged Selim, my husband, saying, I'm worried Selenia is being controlling. Please don't let her isolate herself. Selim read it aloud while brushing his teeth. His eyebrows went straight up. He spit some toothpaste into the sink and laughed. Are you controlling? Really? Then he teased, sweetheart, should I be worried? What is she going to forbid me from? Netflix? I laughed too, but inside a small prick of bitterness stayed. My mom hadn't treated me this way in years, but now she treated Selim like he was in danger. I sat on the edge of the tub. She's not trying to fix this, I murmured. She's trying to make me feel guilty for not playing my role. Selim nodded. Then stop playing it, he said gently. Later that night, I texted Mom just one sentence. If Seraphine apologizes directly to Selim, I'll consider talking. Seraphine didn't apologize to Selim for humiliating me. Never happened. And I think Mom knew that. She didn't reply. Not that night. Not the next day. Not ever. April 6th was when the Real break happened. My dad texted me privately again. Do you want a relationship with your family or not? No context. No softness. No curiosity about how I felt. Just a line in the sand. If I didn't clean up the mess Seraphine made, I was the one cutting ties. If I didn't sacrifice myself again, I would walk away. If I didn't forgive immediately, I didn't love them. But that wasn't what the question really meant. What he really meant was, do you want a relationship with your family the way it works now? And my answer was simple. Not like this. He didn't reply. Over the weekend, Selim and I were invited to dinner at his parents' house. Their home was quiet and warm. Love didn't feel like a transaction. Boundaries weren't treated like betrayal. We sat around their kitchen table, the smell of roasted garlic filling the air. We told them everything. Not dramatically. Not accusingly. Just the truth. Selim's mom reached across the table and squeezed my hand gently. Sweetheart, people show you who they are when they think you owe them. Selim's dad leaned back, thoughtful. Well, he said, sounds like you're finally done playing the role they wrote for you. I blinked. Role? He nodded. Every family has one. Seraphine's was chaos. Yours was the net. Then he asked something nobody in my family had ever asked me. So, Selenia, what do you want to do next? It hit me harder than I expected. I had been so focused on stopping Seraphine's free fall, I hadn't paused to imagine my own next step. For my entire adult life, every time something went wrong for Seraphine, I thought, what should I do? But for the first time, someone was asking, what do you choose? And that was a different question entirely. Over the next few days, I noticed something strange. Mom wasn't updating me with hourly panicked texts. Dad wasn't calling to negotiate. Seraphine wasn't blowing up my phone. Even my cousins had quieted down. At first, I thought maybe they'd finally backed off. Then my aunt texted, we don't know what happened, but freezing someone's life like this is not okay. She made a mistake. This is extreme. Extreme. No one had used that word when I paid Seraphine's rent for 3 months while she figured things out. I bailed her out of that pyramid scheme disaster. I covered her car rental after she drove without insurance. She insulted Selim at my graduation. She called me insecure, lucky, and a dozen other hurtful things disguised as jokes. She walked into my wedding wearing white. But the moment I stopped paying, suddenly I was a monster. That's when I realized this wasn't about consequences. This was about access. Access to me, my money, my emotional labor, my stability. And when I locked the door, they didn't mourn the relationship. They mourned the loss of the benefits. Then something happened that I didn't expect. On Monday morning, I called Seraphine's academic advisor again, not as a sister, just as a formality. Has she applied for reinstatement? I asked. No, the advisor said gently. Not even attempted. She was hiding. She was spiraling. If my parents knew she hadn't re-enrolled, they would have been banging down my door again. But they hadn't said a word. That meant she still hadn't told them the truth. That's when I realized Seraphine wasn't done hitting the ground. She hadn't even found it yet. And I wasn't going to cushion her landing this time. On Tuesday morning, just past 8 a.m., someone knocked on our door. Not a frantic knock. Not a family knock. You know, the kind, loud and desperate, like they're trying to break the door down. This was a single, hesitant knock. Selim opened the door slightly and called down the hall. "Selenia, someone's here." I slipped on a sweater and walked downstairs, half expecting Mom, half fearing Seraphine, and fully bracing for impact. But it wasn't either of them. It was Lucien, Seraphine's ex, the one she had publicly burned a year ago. He looked terrible, thin, hollow-eyed, shoulders curved inward like life had been pressing down on him since the last time I'd seen him. Even his voice sounded frayed at the edges. "Hey," he said, offering a tiny, sheepish nod. I'm not here for drama." Selim stepped behind me, not aggressively, but in that quiet, protective way he always did when he sensed trouble. Lucien swallowed. I ran into Seraphine. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. She told me she needed to tell someone, and I didn't know who else to come to. He unfolded a piece of paper and handed it to me. A printout from a clinic. Plain, unassuming, just a few lines. Pregnancy confirmed. 6 weeks. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence between us. Lucien continued, "She said you were still the only person who ever really took care of her." I sat down slowly at the kitchen table. The paper trembled in my hand, but my fingers were steady. Seraphine pregnant. Lucien wasn't finished. "She didn't ask me for anything," he said. "She wasn't trying to twist it. She just needed to tell someone, and she didn't know how to tell you or your parents." I stared at the paper again. 6 weeks. The wedding had been barely over a week ago. A wave of emotion rolled through me. But it wasn't anger. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't sadness. It was something else. Relief. Not relieved that she was struggling. I wouldn't wish this on anyone. But relief that I finally understood the full picture. This wasn't about tuition or rent or scholarships anymore. This wasn't about spilled wine or white dresses or screaming voicemails. My sister's life wasn't cracking. It was collapsing. And for the first time ever, she wasn't trying to drag me into the rubble with her. Lucien lingered awkwardly. "I just thought you'd want to know," he said. Selim thanked him, shook his hand, and gently closed the door. We stood together in the quiet, the early morning sunlight creeping across the hardwood floor. I sat back down at the kitchen table and unfolded the paper again. Pregnancy confirmed. 6 weeks. Selim sat across from me. He didn't say, "We need to help her." He didn't say, "You should call your parents." He didn't say, "This changes everything." He just reached out and lightly touched the paper. "What are you feeling?" he asked quietly. I breathed in, and I realized something strange and unexpectedly freeing. I didn't feel responsible. Not for her pregnancy, not for her eviction, not for her scholarship loss, not for her unraveling. For the first time in my life, my sister's crisis wasn't instantly transforming into my crisis. The drawer where I had placed the letters, the list Seraphine wrote, the messages she never spoke aloud, felt like the right place for this paper, too. So that's where I put it. Folded neatly. Filed away. Not acted on. Not ignored out of cruelty. Ignored because for once it wasn't my weight to carry. I didn't tell my parents. Not out of spite. Not out of secrecy. Simply because it wasn't my job to explain Seraphine's life anymore. For 30 years, I had been the interpreter, the mediator, the translator of chaos. Mom is crying. Dad lecturing. Seraphine demanded. And I would clean up the mess before they even finished describing it. This time I didn't pick up the phone. Not because I didn't care, but because caring doesn't always mean intervening. Sometimes caring is knowing when to step back. Sometimes love is letting the consequences be the teacher you never could. Seraphine wasn't reaching out to manipulate me anymore. She wasn't reaching out to demand, blame, or spin a story. She was just trying to breathe through the collapse. And for the first time, I finally understood. People like Seraphine don't change when you catch them. They change when you step aside and let the ground teach them what you never could. I poured myself a glass of water, stared out the window at the early morning sky, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Light. Free. Unburdened. That was the last weight I put down.